A new court order could factor into any planning for SPD to move back into the building. Today, a federal judge put a temporary ban on the use of tear gas, pepper spray, and flashbangs to break up protests, with some exceptions. KOMO's Patrick Quinn starts our live team coverage on Capitol Hill. Patrick, any sign of when or how police might try and retake that precinct?
Hey, Eric, no word tonight. A spokesperson for the department told me they're still assessing the status of the building, so we'll just have to wait and see through the weekend. Though we know tonight, whenever and however police move back in, we know they're going to have less tools on their tool belt at their disposal to disperse the crowds. This is how the week started. That's tear gas being fired into crowds. Hands up, don't shoot! Moments later, a man shot with a police projectile. This incident along Pine was one of the primary pieces of evidence Molly Tack Hooper and the ACLU gave to a federal judge who ruled SPD officers are banned from using tear gas, flashbangs, pepper spray, and projectiles for crowd control.
And we just had to put an end to it.
The ban is temporary, just 14 days, but Tack Hooper said it's important that it's effective now.
That would allow people to continue protesting with less fear.
There are exceptions. Officers can still use these tools when they're targeted, but
he made very clear that indiscriminately firing canisters of gas or shooting things into a crowd is not okay and is unconstitutional.
The ruling comes as SPD is still analyzing when and how they plan on reclaiming their precinct. Chief Best said for now, negotiations with protesters have been unproductive, in part because there's not a clear leader within the autonomous zone.
Our negotiators have made some outreach, not successful at this point, so we're going to keep trying.
Mayor Durkin, in an interview with CNN, said right now they're deciding what's next for the East Precinct.
They've had some people in there, and we're going to continue to analyze whether that's the best place for the police to operate, whether there's additional things.
And I got to give a quick shout out to one of our photographers, Steve Miller. He shot some of that video on Monday morning where you saw the flashbangs and the rubber bullets being fired. Without that video, it's really hard to really capture exactly when and how SPD has used some of these devices. So much thanks to him for putting himself in that line of fire. Now, we did check tonight with SPD. There have been 5 reported acts of crime in the last 2 days within the 6-block radius of Chaz. 3 assaults reported, 1 report of vandalism, and 1 theft. Back to you.
Thank you, Patrick. Black Lives Matter Seattle King County was part of the tear gas lawsuit. In a statement, the group says, in part, we take this victory and we keep fighting, we keep marching, we keep assembling to demand the seismic changes that are necessary to rid our justice system of institutional racism.
A key ruling on a police tactic here in Seattle, tear gas. After several tense moments between protesters and police, a federal judge is stepping in. King 5's Tony Black has the story.
On Friday, a U.S. judge ordered Seattle police to stop using tear gas, pepper spray, and flashbangs to break up peaceful protests for 14 days. Seattle police already announced a ban of just tear gas last week, but said they support and will comply with the order. U.S. Judge Richard Jones says the city and nation are at a crisis level over George Floyd's death, and the global strength of the Black Lives Matter movement makes it clear protests won't be short-lived. Judge Jones says though the protests have been mostly peaceful, there were some occasions where SPD used these items, quote, disproportionately and without provocation. So what does this new ban entail? Tear gas, pepper spray, and flashbangs can still be used only after alternative crowd methods have been exhausted, and Chief Best determines it is the only reasonable alternative. Just last week, Chief Best announced a temporary ban on tear gas.
Well, what we had 30 days, and the only people that allowed in the department to utilize it under a life safety circumstance was our SWAT team. And no officers have it. We removed it from everybody. We only gave it to our trained SWAT team to use. And we made it very clear from the onset that we didn't want to use it at all.
But then just 2 days later, gas was used on protesters on Capitol Hill, a decision Chief Best defended Thursday.
The officers felt like it was a life safety situation based on what was occurring, and I concurred. And I own that decision. I made that decision, and I will own any decision that I think is in the best interest of everyone's public safety. There's a lot of discussion about what less lethal, what we call emissions, will be used and how they will be used in the future. And I hope that I have the opportunity to engage in those conversations, but I totally own that decision.
Black Lives Matter Seattle King County filed the federal suit, and in a statement to the ruling said, quote, we take this victory and we keep fighting. We keep marching, we keep assembling to demand the seismic changes that are necessary to rid our justice system of institutional racism. Tony Black, King 5 News.
Meantime, the chief of the Washington State Patrol says his agency will also no longer use tear gas in demonstrations, at least during the pandemic.
I'm very concerned about when I see incidents that occur with George Floyd. That could have been me. I have brothers. It could have been any of my brothers. I have grandsons. I've been around a long time. I've seen some things, and I've been a part of some things with regards to being on the receiving end that has been very hurtful. I think we need to start listening to one another, caring for one another, and not just in talk, but in deed.
Chief Batiste says he supports Governor Jay Inslee's proposals to ban chokeholds and establish an independent agency to review police-involved deaths.